Why do airplanes need passengers to switch phone to airplane mode? Does it really matter? What harm can it cause? They always announcing it, but I feel like nobody ever really follows this rule. Any insight? I'm just curious. Airline pilot here. My understanding is that it is because they can't rule out the slight chance of something happening. New hardware is coming out all the time and it would be damn near impossible to test every combination of phone versus avionics. On occasion, I've seen phones cause slight static feedback when they are in the cockpit and actively transmitting. I've also seen what happens when we forget to turn our phones off. Nothing. I chalk it up to the airlines not wanting the liability risk. If there was an actual chance of it hurting any aspect of the flight, do you think they would allow phones on the plane in the hands of passengers with a simple request to airplane mode them? The answer is nope. I love the answer about switching towers a ton. That almost makes sense and it's the most reasonable answer I've ever heard. Private general aviation. Think small planes use their cell phones all the time while flying. RF crosstalk can be an issue, so it was easier to ban all RF transmission unless the captain allows it, which never happens. Mythbusters did an episode of this. It's a decent watch. It boiled down to phones can create interference to the equipment on board. However, modern planes have plenty of shielding to mitigate this factor. But airlines would rather be safe than sorry. To stop phone assholes from bothering other passengers. There was a Mythbusters episode about that. The short answer is it can interfere the communication signals under absolutely rare, unbelievable circumstances. Makes the pilot's radio staticky if there are enough people using their phones. Clear communication is safety. I went on a plane last month. We were at cruising altitude when I turned airplane mode off. All souls on the flight were lost. Plain and simple it is to avoid planes with 200 phones inside, potentially DDoSing every tower. Along the way, the regulation for airplane mode on phones was headed by the FCC and not the FAA. Because it's a telecom issue. Not really a problem for the aviation infrastructure. It can cause interference with some of their communication equipment, due to the frequency the phones are pushing out while looking for service. Former Air Force avionics technician here. In my experience, phone signal will do basically nothing to modern aircraft as they all work in completely different frequencies. The fact the airline tells you to turn them off dates back to the first analog systems, which could interfere with radios and such. It's basically a liability thing. Non-pilot here. Anything to do with flying except an occasional passenger. Would it kill you to put your phone in airplane mode? Why do people argue over stupid stuff like this? Just turn the damn phone to airplane mode. It doesn't do you any harm. It's not even an inconvenience. Just shut the fuck up and switch to airplane mode. Good God. Almost zero possibility of a problem normally doesn't matter until that problem becomes a near 100 chance of fatality. Aerospace learned the hard way to be overly cautious about a lot of things. Way back in the day it mattered because of interference and bullshit, just like at the gas pumps. But now it matters because cell phones work off of line of sight. And when you are that high up you can see a lot of towers. All of those towers will try and connect to your phone, causing a large draw on the network. Was told this by a pilot when I sold cell phones for many years. Safety aside, and you imagine a 2-3 hour flight with everyone talking on their phone. It's an extra safety precautions to make sure flight deck systems have clearer signals to the ground during the most dangerous, still safe portions of the flight, which is takeoff and landing. Go set your phone next to computer speakers and then have someone call your phone. You'll hear interference usually in your speakers. Now have 143 passengers close to the flight deck that all have their phones on. Sometimes we do things out of an abundance of caution. The minor inconvenience of not using your phone for 10 minutes is far less problematic than having the pilots miss an important communication. It doesn't matter. Small aircraft pilots use their phones as navigation aids. Once you get too high, they stop working anyway. If the phones made the radios screwy, the controllers couldn't use them either. And we all use them. I think this one is right up there with the signs on gas pumps telling you that you must turn off your cell phone while the display screen is asking you to scan a QR code to get their app. When cell phone became a thing, there were a lot of urban legends and fearmongering. Some of that even became law. That and all the instructions such as keeping bags under your seat are for your safety. In the event of an accident, every second counts and they don't want you distracted. Think how distracted people get on their phone. You literally have 90 seconds max to leave the plane. The FAs can't say this explicitly because it creates anxiety. Last time I wanted to test this, my phone lost service pretty quick. Because radio signals can interfere with the navigation and communication equipment of the airplane. The regulation predates cell phones. Before they were common, other equipment such as AM/FM radio was prohibited for similar reasons. Anyone who tries to start a debate with me regarding this will be blocked. Here to only add to the conversation, my friend is a pilot. And I asked him if I'd blow up the plane by leaving mine on. He said no, but my battery will die quick because of the handoff to different towers or attempt to hand off if at a higher altitude, and said if you want to get a lift from the airport when you arrive, make sure it's on airplane mode because if not you'll be juggling at 15. There is an extremely small likelihood that it can interfere with the signals the plane uses. Generally, it won't matter. But on that tiny, minuscule chance, they tell you to turn on airplane mode to reduce that chance further. It's a precaution. Better safe than sorry, in other words. It's a rule that a terrorist cannot use a cell phone bomb if they're asked to turn it on airplane mode first. Because folks will lose their shit if we allow cell phone calls on a plane. Like I want to hear my fellow seatmate talking in the phone about Aunt Mabel's gallstones sitting right next to them for several hours. Folks will snap. Not using airplane mode drains your phone battery because your phone would constantly be searching for a cell tower that doesn't exist that high up. Oh, it used to be an issue. But we are reaching way back. Old tech and interference. Much has changed. Upgraded since then. But it's still not worth the possible risk. It would be interesting to know just how many people actually switch off or switch to airplane mode. Though, the crew don't check people's phones. They just ask to switch off. I'd bet most people don't. And just put it away. Flights in Europe now allow you to use them without BF in airplane mode. Jar deserted caption quarrelsome provide dinosaurs close doll lunchroom juggle backquote. This message was mass deleted edited with backquote. My dad was a 747 pilot from the 100 series up to the 400, and he always said that it fucked with the radios when someone had their phone on. Those older ones amongst us will remember that when someone was about to receive a TXT message on an older phone, think 3310 era, any radios etc. in the vicinity would make a buzzing sound. It's essentially this. Signals to from the aircraft could cause disruption to aircraft systems.